Hey everyone, welcome to the Wheels to Walking to Wheels Again podcast. I am your host, Richard. I'm here with Andrew and Jalila. Today is going to be a very special episode because this is our first guest that we have on, and we normally don't do guests, so yay, hooray, hooray. This is currently 12 days out from...
Well, what if people don't watch our videos? If they're listening to the podcast, they're binging them, they don't know what the fuck happened.
Oh, yeah. No one knows what happened. Well, I mean, I was about to say I'm 12 days out from, so that was a thing. So I'm 12 days out from my accident where I got out on the side of the road to help a car I'd just seen crash. And then another car crashed into that car, which then smashed me into a wall, breaking my left leg, which is why if you're watching this on video, I'm currently sitting in a recliner with my leg propped up. If you're wondering why that's happening, be like, yo, why is he in a recliner with a pillow with his leg propped up? And, broke my tibia and had a surgery on my leg. Tibia is basically a fancy word for shin bone. And I now have a big giant nail through
That's
there.
the thicker one, right?
Yeah, that's the big one.
In your shin.
Between the knee and the ankle. Liver got lacerated, and I've got a lot of other like bruising and soreness. Like I got a lot of ribs that are real crunchy and in pain in my chest and my back and my shoulder blades and my right shoulder and my right elbow and my right wrist. And like now that some of the pain is subsiding from the leg, the other pain is starting to kind of rear its ugly head where it's like, hey, you didn't notice us before, but
you were fucking crunched by a giant car and
you were
so
smashed into a wall. There are still others here.
Yeah. But so how are you doing now?
I'm doing like decent, I guess, like
well, you're home obviously. You're not in the hospital.
For those of you that don't know, you guys be like, oh, well, he must be doing great if he's going to a studio, getting into a car and driving around. It's like, nah, dude, I travel through this studio to get to my bathroom. Okay, so we're literally in my apartment that has a studio in it. We're currently in the studio. It's one room over. People have been sleeping in here. I'm currently still under 24/7 care because I'm unable to like cook on my own. I'm unable.
Really, you don't really move much from the bed.
I pretty much stay on the bed. I've been lucky enough to find like a really cool catheter system. Thanks to Cure and Lisa. Shout out to those guys.
Shout out Cure
Medical. And they sent me these like closed systems so I don't even have to get out of the bed to pee.
You can just pee in a bag, basically.
I basically just use a catheter that like pees into a bag. And before, like I had some because I was using those at the hospital, not those exact ones, but like a closed system. But they were not a good one. Like I came home with like a UTI and I was like, oh great, here we go. So I had to, like take a bunch of Dimanos powder and stay hydrated and, just pee as frequently as I could. And there was even one point where I like ran out of those catheters because I was using them so much and I start basically like peeing into a trash can, which sucked.
How many times did you have to empty the trash can, Jalila?
Just once actually. Just one time.
You only had
We
to do
got
it
him
one
pretty
time?
quick.
No, a couple more times than that.
I had to empty it once, I think.
Yeah.
We had a joke. We were like, how long can you pee in the trash can until it's all the way full?
Yeah.
Oh God.
And we also were talking about how like if we lived in like a frat house or something like that.
Like, oh, whoever dumps it over us to drink it or something stupid.
Like after he fills it, whoever's in charge of the last fill has to drink some. Oh.
So dumb.
So ridiculous. Yeah, but I'm currently the reason why I'm kind of like not like wincing and able to even talk and laugh is I'm on some medicine right now. I take Advil, Tylenol, muscle relaxers, oxys, and even some other kind of like muscle pain meds. I don't know. It's something they gave me in the hospital. And
Tramadol? Did you get that?
No, I never got it. I still haven't got it. The doctor's not responding, and I'm like, cool, I guess I just don't get it. Awesome.
Sick.
I was going to use it to help me wean off the opiates, but psych, guess not.
Yeah.
I only have like a couple more days left of opiates.
I feel like we should get into that a little bit later, too, because I want to talk to you about like opiates and stuff like that, because obviously you have like a history with those and like how that's kind of like fucky, like probably fucking with your brain to be like taking them, but...
Not really, because there's like an actual reason. Like there's a legitimate acute
Not using
reason.
them recreationally.
Yeah, and it's like I could very quickly tell when I need them, and I can also tell when they're in my system and when they're working.
Yeah.
As opposed to when I was abusing them, it was just get high. Now it's like remove pain. Like they're doing their job.
Nice.
Which is good. And I'm been able, like when I first was in the hospital, I was having to take them like every 4 hours. And then when I got home, they were like every 6 hours. And then last night I was able to make it every like for 10 hours without like having to take any, which is cool. And I just made it another 7.5. So like I'm getting to the point where again, it's just if I just sit still, if I just don't do anything other than lay in bed, basically, like that's all I can really do.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. It seems like you're getting better. Your swelling's like going down, which is nice.
Swelling's going down. Attitude's also improving. Like I can be kind of a dick when I'm in pain. Like she can attribute to this for sure, where she knows. And even my family has got like patience and tolerance with me. But it can
your family's done it before.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
This is my first time like even experiencing anything remote to hospitals and trauma and all of that. Like, I've never even broken a bone before.
Yeah, the first time you ever went into an emergency room was with me when I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah, that was my first time ever.
And it was just like caffeine and anxiety.
Yeah.
I love those diagnoses. Those are my favorite.
I've only gone to caffeine and octane, not caffeine and anxiety.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We were out to eat, and my heart kept doing this like gunk thing where I'm like,
yeah. This was like what, like 7 months ago, 6 months ago?
I don't remember exactly, but it kept just doing this like gunk thing, and I'm like, why is it going gunk? Like what's happening? And then
it went turn around.
Well, I just kept ignoring it because I'm like, it's like it'll less and less and less and less, and then like within an hour, it did it like 4 or 5 times in a row. And I like Googled some symptoms, and I was like, that was a bad idea.
It's like WebMD is like every symptom is like you're dying.
Yeah, it's like heart attack or cancer or something.
Like my toe hurts. You're dying of cancer.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, cool, great, awesome, wonderful, great, grand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm doing as expected. I think because I've got such great nutrition, I've got such a great care team around me. I'm getting a lot of rest. And I'm even also pulling some old tricks out of the book where I like got some growth hormone, and I've decided to start using some growth hormone because my ability to repair and heal is already compromised because of a spinal cord injury. That I'm not gonna, if I have the option to boost that to where I heal like I would if I was an able-bodied, then that's something I'm gonna do. Like I got enough for basically like 30 days, which is not. It's jack. It's nothing. It's crap. It's like like if like a bodybuilder would be like, dude, you're wasting your money. Like that's not a big enough dose or a long enough time. But I'm like, I'm trying to just heal my bones right now.
Yeah, literally. No, that makes sense. Okay, so let's go back though, because we haven't really like told the whole. I told the story. This is weird because also on the Wheels to Walking YouTube channel, I've been in every single video for the past like 3 or 4 videos, and before that I was in like one. Like it's been kind of weird because I'm like now all of a sudden like, sup guys? But so last week we put out a video on Friday, which was basically, it was called like Richard's in the Hospital. It actually did really well.
Did pretty decent.
People watched it. People watched it a lot. I got like 30K views in like 3 or 4 days or something.
Lots of thumbs, which is cool. Lots of comments.
Yeah, but basically, I went on there and kind of explained it from like a third party. But you and Jalila have never fully explained it on the record as like how this whole shit went down.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. So it was like what, last Sunday night?
So the 22nd. So we were over at my sister's house just enjoying family time together and eating dinner and hanging out. And we had a family friend that just that night had gotten into a similar accident where they were going on the road, hit a big puddle, hydroplaned, like, and crashed into a wall, and basically just sat there and no one stopped to help him. Like no one. Like they had to like call and people had to come get him. So like it was already something on the top of my mind and on my heart where I was like, what kind of shitty people just like let a kid like crash into a wall and just like stay there? Like, I don't know. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because like it's just my nature to automatically like whenever I see someone in a situation, because I always feel really bad if I don't help. Like there's been times in my life where I have kept driving and I'm like, dude, like why didn't I stop? But so that had happened, and it was like pretty much like a tsunami. Not a tsunami. It just was a hard rain, because most hard rains last for like 20-30 minutes and then it like turns into a drizzle. But this was like a hard rain for like 4 hours. Like this was a big rain, like enough debris in the road to like fill up the drains, for then the drains to stop being as effective and then start gaining like puddles in the road. Like, you know, we're talking high wipers.
Yeah.
Even at 45 miles an hour, you're rocking high wipers. And so we had left.
How much, Jalila, this is a question for you. When roads are made, how long are they supposed to last of that type of rain?
Well, it depends how heavy the rain is.
Like, because, I mean, you always see, like, pictures of, like, floods and shit, and you're like, hey, that should be better. Like, what do you plan for?
Well, you design based on the storm year. So you can have, like, 25-year storm, 100-year storm, 50-year storm.
You look at the worst storm.
Yeah, you collect rainfall data, and there's a lot of, like, math and equations that go along with that. But in a situation like this, it just, you know, went over capacity. So
Interesting.
For those of you that
then
don't
it
know,
starts to flood.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, she's an engineer who works on roads and drainage.
Right.
So
Also, drainage possibly could have just been really bad too.
Yeah.
That's a factor as well.
yeah, there could have been debris. It could have been bad drainage. It could have been that it reached its capacity. There's a million reasons why.
You don't have inlets at low points, which is the dumbest thing ever. So that can cause puddles.
Yeah.
And there were huge puddles everywhere.
I mean,
that night.
was-
People were hydroplaning.
Yeah, it was so dangerous that like whenever it rains like that, I always drive in the middle lane, because I know that there can be puddles on the left and on the right.
Yep.
And so we were driving home. It was pretty late. It was about midnight, and it was me in the middle lane, and then there was 3 cars ahead of us in each lane, and the 2 in the middle lane and the right lane were more in front than the car in the left lane. And we're going, I don't know, probably 55, 60. You know, we're going highway speed, but not Atlanta highway speed. Atlanta highway speed is like 80.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I see the left lane car just turn right, like 90 degrees turn right, and just drill right into the right lane's wall.
So they went across all 4 lanes.
All 4 lanes, just bam. And I'd never seen something just like bash so quick and so fast, to the point I was like, holy shit, that person's fucked up. Like you don't even have time to like brace yourself. Like it just like bash, like, you know, like
Yeah.
such a quick situation. And so I passed him and immediately pulled over, and I was like, dude, I got to make sure at minimum these people are alive. You know, obviously hindsight 2020, you know, the smart thing to do, or I guess the right thing to do, is call emergency services and, you know, call the police and let people know. But I've got enough emergency preparedness training to know that people can die in that short period of time. Like if they need CPR, or if they need like a tourniquet, or, you know, being in Boy Scouts, we get, you know, Andrew's an Eagle Scout, I'm an Eagle Scout. We've been trained in stuff like this. So we know kind of what to do, at least for a quick moment, we know what to do. So, I like, you know, crutched my way up to the car, and there was some cars that were passing, and they were like kicking up debris, and like, you know, it was like kind of hitting me a little bit. I'm like, dude, we're not in a good spot right now. So
How much of a shoulder was there?
enough for a car.
It was about an 8-foot shoulder.
Okay.
Yeah, to
There
be
was-
sideways. Yeah.
There was plenty of room.
It was enough for them to be.
But this car was like fully like
It was perpendicular to the wall.
yeah. But the whole thing was in the shoulder, or was some of it like hanging out?
Whole thing was in the shoulder.
It was all in the
Okay.
shoulder.
Nice.
Yeah, there
Okay.
wasn't any. That's why, I mean, I didn't feel uncomfortable walking up there, because I'm like,
Yeah.
all lanes are open still, technically.
Yeah.
And so like you could see a bunch of like airbags deployed and a bunch of smoke, and the door itself was like really crinkled, bashed to the point where you don't even grab a handle. Like I just kind of grabbed it and like ripped it open. And like the smell
What
of
car was it?
I don't know. I would-
SUV?
no, it was like a crossover, like maybe a Toyota Matrix.
Okay.
Like an orange Toyota Matrix, maybe a Chevy Aveo or something like that, like a little crossover, 4 doors and a hatch. And I just like ripped open the door.
And you're on your crutch.
I was on my crutch, and I just ripped open the door, and I couldn't see in because there was so much like smoke from the airbags. For those of you that don't know, airbags are deployed with gunpowder. Like they're deployed with explosives. So it smelled like a gunshot, like hardcore in there. And this person was like shuffling around for their phone, and I like helped them grab it off the floorboard, and I said, "Turn off your music." And they turned off their music, and I said, "Are you okay?" And they said, "Yes." So to me, I'm like, they're breathing, responsive, cool. My job's done here. Time to get the fuck out. And I was like, "Hey, you need to come get in my car now. It's dangerous where we are." And they shook their head no. And I just was like, "Okay, fine." And I turned around to leave, and that's when I just blacked out. Like, I don't remember anything. And this is where we'll let Jalila take over the story, because until there's little patches, like I remember like in the ambulance a little bit, I remember in trauma unit a little bit, I remember in like the trauma like waiting area before they sent me up to my room. Like I remember these little blips, but mostly after that point I just blacked out. So Jalila, from your tell us from when I pulled over.
Yeah. Okay. So as soon as we pulled over, I remember you said, "Okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to help them." And I remember thinking in my head, this is a bad idea, because I've always been taught, you know, if there's an accident on the side of the road, you stay in the car. You never get out of the car. So I had that in the back of my head the entire time. And I was thinking, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. But I didn't verbally say anything. And like still to this day, I like really regret that. I wish I would have said, no, don't do that. It's not safe. So he goes out and he grabs his crutch, and then he actually comes back in like 30 seconds later because he's like, "Let me grab my phone." So he's like, "Okay." Comes back, grabs his phone. He crutches over there, and we're pulled over. So I turn myself. I'm in the passenger seat, so I'm looking through the rear window of his truck.
Oh.
So I'm watching him from inside his truck, and I watch him approach the car. And I see him shuffling around, and I'm still thinking in my head, shit, like, hurry up, come back here, because it's going to take him a while to crutch over here. And my heart was racing the whole time because I knew this was just not a good situation. And then I was thinking, what if another car comes and like crashes in the exact same spot? I shit you not, I was thinking that. And then 30 seconds later, I see in my peripheral vision another car spinning out of control, crossing all three lanes, similar to what we had seen originally when we were on the road. And then I just saw it hit Richard, and then I didn't see him. And
Did it hit Richard directly, or did it hit the other car?
I think it hit the other car, and then that original car hit Richard. I think that's what I remember. Like it.
Yeah, it's all like a blur.
It's all kind of a blur.
It doesn't really matter, but
trauma can be that way.
All I remember, it was a car hit Richard, whether it was the new one or the original one, and then I didn't see Richard. He was gone in like a second. So I'm looking back, and I remember I stopped for 10 seconds, and I couldn't believe what was happening. And I was in shock, and I didn't believe what I just saw. And then I screamed, "This is not happening right now." And then I bolted out of the car, and I was screaming, "Richard, Richard, Richard," because I couldn't find him for a second. And I then eventually found him. He was on his back, right up against the wall, basically in a puddle. And this is like a scene out of a movie. My God, it was dark. It was pouring rain. It was freezing. He's on his back. He has this facial expression that's like, what is going on? Thank God I found him, and like your eyes were open. If I would have found you and like you were knocked out,
because he just like disappeared. You just thought he was like dead, right?
I didn't know how I was going to find him, if he was going to be like crushed or like a limb hanging off or something.
God.
A car like hit him at full speed.
Yeah.
So I was terrified, and I honestly thought for a second when he got hit that was it. And anyway, when I go and I'm, kneeled next to him, and he had this face, and he's like, "What's going on? What's happening? What happened? Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm okay."
I was really concerned about her. I kept asking her. I was like,
He
"Are
was
you
really-
okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?"
Yeah, and I kept reassuring, I'm okay. You got hit by a car. Someone called 911. They're on their way. And he kept asking the same question over and over again. Obviously, it must have been like a concussion or something.
Yeah, I had some head trauma for sure. Like if
Yeah.
you're on video, you can see I still got some stitches here. If you look at the thumbnail of the original video, you can see a lot of blood, and then even the back of my head was like bashed up against the wall too. So I got hit in the front and in the back. This is why I like can't remember anything. Like this part that she's telling me, like I don't remember talking back. I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
You were actually very vocal the whole time. And I remember I wanted to keep you talking, and I didn't want you to like close your eyes and, be silent. And people kept coming up to us, and they were getting really close to you.
Who's people? Like,
The other people involved in the accident.
so the other car, the second car that hit.
Yes, and
They all got out.
I think so, and I think these other
Jeez.
people were other people that pulled over because they saw us.
What a shit show.
It was insane, and they kept getting
Dude, how
really
fucking
close.
terrible would it have been if like heaven forbid another fucking car came or something like.
I mean,
geez.
that's what I was thinking when I was sitting next to him. I'm like, what if a third car comes?
I know, literally.
I was scared
I mean,
too.
you can't help but think that because the first car happens, and you're like, that sucks. Second car happens, and you're like, this is crazy. It's like, what's it's like lightning striking the same place, but it's like, that.
I mean, the puddle was there, so
yeah, the puddle's there. It makes sense. If this
Yeah.
happened twice, it could totally happen again.
And if people are like, "Oh, there's an accident in the right lane, let me go over to the left lane,"
Right.
it's like that's where the puddle is.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck
so,
puddles.
Hashtag fuck puddles. Yeah. Hi, Laura. But yeah, so you were saying that even when I was blacked out, I was telling you what was wrong with me and what not to do and what to do and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't blacked out, but you just don't remember. You were saying when people were getting close, you were like, hey, make sure that they like stay away from me. Like, don't have them touch me. And I was like, yeah, no one can touch you except the paramedics. And then they'd come up to your face and be like, hey, bro, you okay? And you're like, I'm just trying to live here. Like, I'm just trying not to die. And like, I remember you were saying that.
Like, just trying to stay alive.
And then you
here.
kept saying, I'm really, really cold. And you were shivering like violently because it was freezing. So I was yelling at people like, can you just give me any spare blankets or sweatshirts? And then, a couple times you would look down at your leg and be like, my leg is fucked. Like, it is broken. And
The bone was sticking out,
The
right?
bone was sticking out. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but it's okay. We're going to get that fixed. And you kept saying that over and over.
I had a concussion one time, and I remember I repeated myself so much. And I even kind of remember, because I wasn't like blacked out, I can kind of remember my concussion, but I remember asking my friend, because I was at Boy Scout camp, I kept asking him what campsite we were at. I'm like, what campsite are we at again? Oh, we're at campsite 20. Oh, cool. Hey, what campsite are we in again? But I remember asking him like a bunch of times, and I even remembered, I'm like, dude, I think I asked you this before, but I don't remember what you said. What campsite are we in? Like, I think that's just like a thing that happens because you're just like you don't have the ability to like store memories, but you're still like thinking. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, the memory part of the brain is gone.
Your brain's just like, you don't need to remember this shit. This is traumatic as fuck. Like, we're just trying to stay alive here. We're gonna direct all of our power to like
organs
staying alive,
and breathing and body temperature and everything else.
This wheel's slipping. We're gonna send the power to the other three.
Yes, basically.
Nice car analogy for the car accident. So what happened after that, Jalila?
So it took the ambulance like fucking forever. God.
I mean, they were probably tending to a lot of other bullshit.
I know, but I wasn't thinking about other bullshit. I was thinking about you. So I just remember getting so pissed, and I kept yelling at everyone. I'm like, did someone call 911? Where's the ambulance? And they're like, it was called. They're coming. I'm like, Jesus, like, call it again. Like, I don't know. I was freaking out. I wanted him to get transported.
Yeah.
So then finally, I see the lights, and, they come, they pull over, and the paramedics come. And I think, oh man, the worst part was when they were trying to get him on the gurney.
Oh God. I'm luckily I don't remember that, but I know I've like moving you when you're hurting from a place to another place is the worst.
Yeah.
Like it is the worst.
Yeah.
Was I screaming?
You were screaming and like crying, and it was like the worst thing ever. I mean, you were in so much pain and you were just suffering. but there's nothing they can do like that. That's what
They
they have to
gotta
do.
move you.
They have to move you and get
They
you out
gotta
of
get
the
me.
road.
They gotta get me in the wagon. They gotta get me warm. They gotta check my vitals. They gotta give me drugs. Like,
Yep.
like my feelings are not important at that point.
Right.
Like keeping me alive is important at that point. So
Right.
it's like, yeah, paramedics are gonna be mean, but they're not actually. They're just
Tough love.
They're just trying to get you off the road.
try to get me out of a fucking
Yeah.
puddle.
So they get you on the ambulance, and I like kind of search around the area you were in, and I found your keys. So I grabbed your keys, and your crutch was destroyed. That was in pieces. And I couldn't find your phone, but that's something we can get into.
That's a story.
That's
yeah.
a different story.
Yeah.
And so then I quickly, I run to the paramedic. I said, do not leave without me. I need to go turn off the car and like grab my purse because I'm going to need that information. Like I have, like for the cops and all of that. So I go and I run and I turn off the car and I grab my shit and I get into the passenger seat of the ambulance, and then they're asking me these questions like, okay, so what happened? And like, I'm like panicking.
Yeah.
And I hear him in the back, so I'm like looking over, like making sure he's okay, and trying to answer questions like the best I can. I didn't really feel
It's like hot ones. You're like, what?
Yeah,
What'd you say?
exactly.
Fuck.
And I didn't really feel like reliving what just happened 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But I had to. And
Yeah.
I can hear him like wailing in the background because he's in pain and, giving them his meds and all of that. And then as soon as I like calmed down a little bit, then I called his family to let them know that, he got hit by a car and that we're on our way to the hospital. And then after that was done, then I called my mom and started crying.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I'm like, Richard just got hit by a car. I can't believe this is happening. And I'm like hyperventilating and oh God, it was awful. But then I calmed down once we got to the hospital. And then we pull up and they take him out and they bring you to the first room, like a trauma room.
Triage.
Yeah.
Triage is where they analyze what happened. They pick you apart basically. They look cut off all your clothes. They'll give you all the x-rays, all the scans. They'll take your blood pressure. They'll take your temperature. They try to ask you as many questions as possible. So they just make sure they get they try to gather the most information as possible before they go on to the next thing, because it's like if they don't know what they need to do, then what do they do? So
yeah, exactly.
So you go into triage first, and when you're in triage, that's when it's like, okay, what's wrong with you? We got to figure out what's wrong with you, and we got to find out what is the most urgent stuff, meaning what's the stuff that's could kill you.
Yeah.
Versus, a broken leg. A broken leg wasn't going to kill me, but internal bleeding was.
Yeah.
So they had to look at those kind of things, which I did have some internal bleeding. I did have a liver that was lacerated, but the triage is where that's what they do at triage.
Yeah. So they took you in there and you were still shaking because you were really, really cold.
That's one of my memories. I remember being so cold. I was shivering so aggressively that I remember the shivers hurt. Mm-hmm. They the shivers made my leg hurt, and I kept screaming. I was like, I'm so cold, blankets, 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 blankets. And so many people were just just imagine you're at a warm beach. Just think about the warm beach, and they don't know. But I'm like, I hate beaches. That I don't associate beaches with warm. Think fireplace,
Yeah. I'm thinking about sand in my wheelchair now, damn it.
Yeah. I'm thinking about not being able to walk. I'm thinking about all this crap.
Oh,
That
man.
sucks. Yeah. So, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I'm sure that also you were very adamant of telling them you have a pre-existing spinal cord injury too.
Oh, he was saying that from the beginning, even when he was on the road.
Again, the ambulance.
Even before
Yeah, it's
the
I have a spinal cord injury. How do you know? It's because I've had it for 10 years.
Yeah, as soon as the paramedics
it's
came, you were like, hey, just let you know, I have a spinal cord injury. And you kept mentioning it over and over again.
I remember a lot of them being so confused because they're like, then how did you walk there? So many times people were like, well, we didn't find a wheelchair. It's I got time to explain that part. Just know that I have a spinal cord injury.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, we'll get into this a little bit later, but I am constantly shocked and baffled at the amount of ignorance around spinal cord injury and any type of neurological injury that people especially in the medical field, just don't know.
Yeah, because
Like,
it makes sense if a regular person doesn't know, but if you're like a person in the medical field and you don't know this stuff, it's kind of scary.
And specifically the kind of medical field that would encounter those kind of things, you know?
Totally.
Like if it was just like a particular type of healthcare or doctor that didn't.
Yeah, like, you know, a general
Interact with-
practitioner or something, like, didn't know. You're like, oh, okay, whatever. He's just like a, you know, whatever.
I mean,
Just
I think,
check
I
up
mean,
some
I
shit.
mean, even they should have at least a baseline understanding. But,
I agree.
but anyway,
again-
so we get into triage and they find out, you know, like legs broken. What did they? And then they splinted it. What else? Do you know what else they did? I remember lots of like X-rays and scans.
They did
and,
that.
like,
I
and the
remember them,
machines that made noises and stuff.
Didn't they drop you or something on the one scanner or something like that? What were you saying? They
that was-
dropped your leg
that
on
was,
the...
That was later.
I was in the ICU.
That was later. No, that was when I finally made it up to my main room.
Oh, okay.
They took me to go get an MRI, and then when I was in the MRI machine, my leg like fell off the bed, the little stupid bed that they were on, because they didn't like position my feet correctly. So like this particular hospital was just like the most incompetent people, like the most uneducated, egotistical, incompetent assholes. Like we're talking nurses, we're talking doctors, we're talking techs, everyone. Like me and my family had to fight tooth and nail for just like basic care. It was pathetic. Like I've never, like the trauma unit, like the trauma unit took care of me just fine. But the second I got into ICU, it was like a fucking shit show. Like it was just a horrible experience.
Do you think it was more... I mean, it was probably worsened by the fact that the other hospital where people typically get taken had like flooding issues or something too?
Yep.
But do you think it's always like that, or do you think that
I
it's
think
like...
all trauma hospitals are like that, because trauma hospitals specialize in trauma. So the second you're done with trauma, like no one gives a fuck about you, like because they're there to deal with
They're
trauma.
like, he's alive, he'll
Yeah.
make it.
He's alive, pass. You know, but we'll I feel like this is too early
Yeah,
in the story to
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah,
this.
yeah.
So anyway, you got more on your story, because I don't really remember until I was finally in ICU.
Yeah.
Who did you text to? Because you texted me. You texted me at like 1 a.m. and you're like, hey, Richard was in a car accident. Or no, you said Richard got hit by a car. Something. I can look at the text, but it was like...
Because she contacted my mom first, because she couldn't remember how to contact my sister.
Well, yeah, here. Now, it's not that I couldn't remember. So I remember you saying, call Aaron Lee. So that's what I was going to do.
Yes.
But I was so frazzled and shaken up, I couldn't even like figure out how to get to my contacts, because I didn't have a previous text from her. So that's why I texted your mom, because I had a previous text from her. So I just went to my text messages and then called her directly.
Yeah, you're like,
from
how do I go to the contacts
seriously.
app? That's like an actual thing. Like, I forget
No, for
that
real.
too.
Like
Because if I don't call you regularly, like,
yeah.
oh yeah, I gotta go to contacts, and then I gotta like...
Yeah, I went
yeah.
straight dumb. Like I couldn't figure out how to work my phone. That's how frazzled I was. So I
Yeah,
called your mom.
this is what you said to me at 1 a.m. Hey, Andrew, just want to let you know that Richard was bit by a car.
Oh, nice.
That Richard was bit by a car. So a car fucking... But he is okay as of now. I'm at the hospital right now with his family. He just got a CAT scan and MRI done. He has a broken He does have a broken tibia, but no internal bleeding or anything of that sort.
Well, that's what we thought.
But then-
at
That's
that
what we
point.
thought at
That's
that
what we thought
point.
at 1 a.m. And then update once you see this. He's broken some bones in his back, has a liver laceration with some bleeding, and a broken tibia. He'll be going into surgery today for his leg. But the broken bones in the back do you think that was pre-existing, or do you think that was from the accident?
I mean, I don't trust the judgment of any of these doctors, but regardless if they were from old fractures or if they were new, there's nothing you can do about it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't about to go get a fusion done. Like, you'd be like, oh, sure, we'll just do a spinal fusion on you. I'd be like, you can suck it. Like, you're not cutting me open.
Yeah.
Like, where I hurt the most is where my ribs attach to my chest in my sternum. So if you're on video, it's kind of like the sternum is like right in between the middle of the pec. And then if you make like a C shape underneath the pec, like all those ribs where they connect into the sternum, like that hurts really bad. Like anytime I'm reaching or stretching or moving or
I mean, it
laying
probably
on
got
my
like
side.
fucking crunched.
Yeah, well, I mean, my shoulder on the right side and the wrist and my elbow, I think I kind of like like a football player or like someone who's trying to break down the door, like probably like instinctively like tried to protect myself. And then also in between my shoulder blades, where the spine is. So there's like shoulder blade, and there's like a spine in the middle. So for the audio listeners, there's spine and then the shoulder blade to your left and the shoulder blade to your right, kind of like at your nipple level, but like on your back. For spinal cord injury guys, you'll know like it's like between like T3 and T7 basically. And that's where, again, like the ribs, like parts of the ribs like attach to the spinal cord. And I think those were also like just bashed. You know, like I use the example where like if you ever eaten a rotisserie chicken before and you're ripping the chicken breast off that like that centerpiece and it's like crunchy, you know.
Yeah.
It's like you can feel the bones cracking and the cartilage ripping, and it's like that's what it feels like. Like for the most part, like it sucks. Like the fact that I'm even able to talk and laugh and even sit up, I've been laying down for so long, you know, is only because I'm on meds right now, because like that, it sucks. Like I couldn't even cough. Like I couldn't talk. Like it was bad. It sucked. But again, it's not like anybody could do anything about it. You know, same like this wrist. It's like it's still all like bruised up and everything. But what can they do?
Yeah, exactly. No, it makes sense. Okay, let's go back to the hospital. So you got his family. You eventually contacted his family and everything. Everyone got to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then you were just kind of like waiting probably, right?
Yeah, so then they like kicked me out because they had to like finish running some tests and finishing up whatever they had to do. So his family was already there in the main waiting room, and I got out there. All I did was make eye contact with his mom and then started sobbing.
Yeah, of course.
That's all I had to do.
Aaron Lee was telling me that there was like a whole crazy thing that was going down in the waiting room. She said there was like homeless people like pooping their pants and stuff. And, like,
Oh, no, Rachel said that. Yeah. Well, me and Aaron Lee went to check on Richard. Rachel stayed out. Oh my God. Apparently, yeah, there was this homeless guy and he was just like, there's diarrhea everywhere.
Yeah, he
all
was
over
like
the
he was
chair.
sick, like all over the chair, like all down his leg, like all on the floor. He was like, I need help, and then like was like just having diarrhea all over
Oh
himself.
my God.
Yums. That sounds like some, yeah.
These squirts are the best part. Yum.
Sounds like some nice chowder.
I'm glad we missed that one.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
for anyone listening to the Tiny Meat Gang, that sounds like some shit terrorism. Do you listen to Tiny Meat Gang, AJ?
From time to time.
There was this story they covered where this guy in LA like had an entire like bucket of shit that he'd been collecting for like the past, like they were like it must have been over months. Like he had an entire bucket, and he fucking like went up to this lady randomly, like it was a completely random attack, ripped her out of her car and dumped a hot bucket of shit. Like it was like sitting in the sun, so it was like really hot. And he like dumped this bucket of like feces on her, and she has like major PTSD. She had like so like it was fucked up, dude, because it got in her mouth and her eyes. Like it was so fucked. Yeah, AJ's like literally gagging. I'm gonna stop talking about it, but yeah, go listen to that episode of Tiny Meat Gang. It was really gross.
No, don't listen to that episode of Tiny Meat Gang. That sounds terrible.
But it's funny because now that they talked about it, there's like all these other like shit terrorism stories that people have started sending them.
Oh my God.
So now it's like a thing, and like they're on their last episode, they were like joking about
biological attack.
they were like joking about how they couldn't go another episode without talking about shit terrorism.
Jesus. So anyway, back at the hospital.
Jalila was a victim of shit terrorism.
Oh my God.
Or Rachel was, at least.
Rachel was, yeah.
Rachel was
Aaron Lee and I were spared, thank God.
Also, it's kind of crazy that like this happened right around Christmas. All your family that's out of town was in town. Well, I guess just Rachel, right?
It was just Rachel. I mean,
But still.
that was really helpful. But what's so crazy is and eerie is like we've mentioned this a couple of times, but if you go back and listen to the last half of the last episode, all I talk about is like, man, I'm so happy this year isn't like as shitty and as bad as crazy as all the other years have been. And like usually it's between, you know, November and February that all these
like
bad
the worst months of my life.
all these bad things happen to me. And like, man, I'm so glad nothing bad has happened to me. And then like,
And I was like, yeah, your life is like a fucking Lemony Snicket, a series of unfortunate events. And then like literally like the next week, It was so fucked. And it was crazy for me too on the other end, like just the wheels to walking side, not to get away from the hospital stuff, but like it was weird because we were like so stoked because we like just launched our podcast and like things were going well and it's like Christmas and we had like all, you know, like episodes were coming out and all these things were just like rolling.
We had a
and
year in
it's
review
like,
coming up soon. We got videos in the tank that we honestly can't release until I'm better again.
because it's just weird.
It would just not make
like what am I
sense.
supposed to do? Like I had a picture that I was gonna post on my Instagram, like, and I'm like, what am I gonna say now? Like, oh, so, like, go listen to our podcast with my friend Richard, who's fucked up in the hospital right now and like almost just died. Like, how do you can't like nuance that? Like, you gotta.
Yeah,
It's almost like very creepy and like, I don't know. It like I don't know. It was just weird. It was just all very, very weird.
Yeah, like how weird would it be to be a year in review video? It's like, this year was amazing, guys. Everything went great. Check out the highlight reel for the last 10 months. And it's like, nah, dude, he's in the hospital right now.
Yeah, like he's literally dying. No, I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, that was what was strange too. And that's why like people don't understand how like content can go stale like that. Even a fucking episode that was like a week old was just like, oh yeah, that was eerie and weird. We were literally just talking about how winter's like the worst time, but this winter's the best. And then you get in a fucking car accident, you know?
Well, I mean, I hit by a car, I think.
Or yeah, hit by a car. It's even worse.
Yeah, but there are some evergreen stuff like our hands-on concepts wheelchair review video is going to be fine. We can totally use.
But I'm just saying in general, people don't realize they're like, oh yeah, you can just like pre-record everything. It's like, kind of.
We tried that in the beginning and it like worked, but not at the same time.
Yeah, it's also hard on the creators too, because you then you're just releasing stuff that you're not even stoked about anymore. It's like I recorded this like 3 months ago, you know. It's like, anyways,
enough about that. So back to the hospital, back to the studio,
back to the future.
Yes. So at this point, you know, they got me splinted up and they put me in ICU.
Do you remember any of this part?
No,
really?
not really. I just remember being in so much pain and being so like unable to think because I was in so much pain that all I could do was just look at a clock. I was just like staring at the ceiling the whole time, just like in zombie mode. Like I couldn't sit up, look left, look right. Like it hurt when people would talk to me. You know, like
the sound of their voice like fucking vibrated you.
Yeah, seriously, like their vibrations, like having to answer people back, just like the tone of even my own voice would put vibrations through my body. It would hurt. Like I didn't want to watch TV. I didn't want to do anything, and like the pain was so overwhelming. That's all I could focus on. Like it was impossible to even think about anything else because it was just so bad. Like I even remember thinking to myself, like, man, I could use this time to like think about stuff, but I'm like, dude,
you can't even think
about stuff. Like all I can do is just look at this clock, and I took a lot of my clock watching skills, if that's even the right word, that I learned when I was in drug rehab. Was like I just had to like count it out and be like, okay, if I can last 10 seconds, okay, made it. All right, let's do another 10 seconds. Okay, made it. And then be like, all right, how about 30 seconds? Made it. Okay, how about 60 seconds? Made it. And I just kind of like kept expanding it, you know, to every like 10 minutes or every 20 minutes or 30 minutes or every hour. You know, I was just counting down. And for the longest time, it was a countdown to my meds. I'm like, I just need meds. And what sucked is like they didn't understand that I could still feel pain even though I was a spinal cord injury. They thought I was like completely paralyzed and couldn't feel pain. So no one believed me when I was telling them that I was like in a lot of pain and I needed pain. They thought I was just like drug seeking. Like they were giving me like 5 milligrams every 6 hours. Like for those of you that know anything,
you're on more than that right now.
Yeah, when I left the hospital, I was on 10 every 4 hours, and that was like 7 days after the fact. Like, I was fighting tooth and nail to even get like basic pain management. I was like, for the love of God, like I was downstairs. They were giving me like injections of like fentanyl every 15 minutes, and then I come upstairs, and all of a sudden that pain isn't there anymore. Like, what are you talking about? Like, of course that pain's still there. Like, I was so like frustrated, and even more annoying is like they wouldn't give me my daily meds either. Like my therapeutic medication that I take every day, like my nerve pain medication and my antidepressants and my mood stabilizers, like they wouldn't give those to me because they're like, oh, like we can't give you anything else for pain. And I'm like, that's the wrong kind of pain.
It's nerve pain,
I'm like, it's nerve pain. And
it was an opioid epidemic, honey. We can't
give you any more. And like I kept like having.
You heard of that?
And yeah, I know, right? And I was like, I literally at one point I go, yeah, I know about it. I'm a victim of it. I'm 5 years clean, but I need more. Like, and then
I am the opioid epidemic, motherfucker.
And then I started having these really bad leg spasms where like the only thing that would make my leg hurt is when I was having spasms. And then my legs would keep having spasms. And I was like, guys, I need something to make them stop spasming. And they're like, well, we just can't give you any more. And
because the spasms would be painful.
Yeah. And then like every time I got a new nurse, which is every 12 hours, I'd be like, I need my daily medication. I need to have this more than like every 6 hours. And I finally like begged for like 2 or 3 days to finally get them to do it every 4 hours. And then that still didn't help. And I was like, finally at one point I almost broke down crying. Like there was this one nurse. He was the only one that I feel like cared about me in even the slightest bit. And the reason I figured out later is he told me that he's got a 12-year-old nephew with spina bifida. So he got it. He gets it. He's like, yeah, I learned how to calf because, I learned how to calf on my nephew when he was an infant. And, like, now that he's older, like, that's his party trick. And I go, no way, I do that at parties, too. I'm like, hey, you guys want to come see how I pee? But so there was just this, like, a little bit of compassion. And you could tell that he was also annoyed and frustrated because, like, the doctors weren't getting back to him. And I was like, dude, I'm tired. I was like, I'm sick and tired of begging. I'm sick and tired of having to fight and advocate for myself to get some basic pain relief. I was like, this is unnecessary. This is uncalled for. I know it's not your fault, but you're the only person that has access to that keyboard and that phone to send messages to the right people. I'm like, please, please, please just do anything and everything you can in your power. Like, please, I need your help. Like, I was like begging. And then finally he was able to get it like every 4 hours at like a 10 milligram, which is still pretty weak, but like it was enough to do the job.
It was double what they were giving you, right?
Yeah.
They were giving you 5.
Yeah. And then like,
and just for reference, like you said, they were giving you injections of fentanyl. What is that the equivalent of?
Fentanyl is the equivalent, like 1 milligram of fentanyl is the equivalent of like 10 or 100 milligrams of morphine. And morphine and the pills that they were giving me is like about the same equivalent as morphine. So they were
like 100 times less?
Yeah, like 100 times less. And they were giving it to me like every 15 minutes. Like every time I was like, I hurt, they were like, zoop. They would, just like just shoot it into my IV.
Jeez.
Because they had to like, for example, like when they were splinting me, like they had to keep me still and they had to keep me from screaming. So they would just give me stuff. Like I always hate that. Like whenever you're like in one area of the hospital and they move you to the next one, all of a sudden like all your history of everything you've ever done just like goes away. And then finally got to the point where it was like day 3, I still hadn't got like my antidepressants, I still hadn't gotten my nerve pain medication. We had asked every single doctor that like my sister pulled like the most gangster boss move ever and like went and talked to the charge nurse, like the lead nurse ahead, and was like, hey, you need to give him his medicine. He has to have it now. And they're like, oh, no, sorry, we can't do that. We've already sent down a message. We've requested it. She's like, okay, no problem. That's all right with me. I'm just going to need you to have that in writing, and I'm going to need you to sign it that you are refusing to give him his medications. And then she said the look on her face was like terror. She's like, oh, my God. Because like whoever signs that piece of paper is like liable, and hospitals do not like being liable for anything. So that's a pro tip for you guys that are listening. If you're ever in a situation where people are refusing you any type of care, make them write it on paper and sign it, and that will send the fear of God through their souls. Because in 5 fucking minutes, I had all of my meds. Like in 5 minutes, they literally like called downstairs and was like, they're going to sue. They're collecting paperwork. Like that was not our intent. But like my sister basically was like, okay, cool, sure. Like she was really nice about it. She's like, okay, that's no problem.
We're just going to fuck you up. You're just going to ruin your life.
I understand that that's okay that you can't service him, but I just need it in writing and I need you to sign it for me.
I understand.
That says that you're refusing care. And they were like, skirt. And then literally even medicine that they said, oh, sorry, our pharmacy doesn't keep that in their formulary, magically they had within 5 minutes.
Oh, no way.
No way. I was like, how interesting is that?
Dude, they must have built a fucking formulary or something.
Liars. And dude, I'm telling you, like there was so much stuff. Like every time I got a new nurse, they were trying to like start a fight with me. Like every time they would be like, hey, I remember one lady, I literally like like she came in and she didn't even ask me like how I was feeling or if it was okay to touch me. She just started like touching me all over. And I was like, pardon me, excuse me, please don't touch me. I was like, thank you. I was like, I would really appreciate that if you would not touch me. Thank you very much. I'm in a lot of pain. If you want to ask me before it's okay to touch me. And she's like, you're a spinal cord injury. You can't feel this. And started like poking at my legs. And I was like, excuse me, don't touch me. She's like, you better lose that attitude with me or we're going to have a bad day. And I was like, I said, don't touch me. That hurts. She's like, we need to lose that attitude. And I go, I don't think I'm having an attitude right now. I said, please. And I said, thank you. I said, please do not thank you. She's like, well, you need to lose that tone with me. I go, forgive me for having a tone. I haven't slept in 2 days and I'm completely delirious and in a lot of pain. So forgive me for having a tone. Can you coach me? Can you teach me how to talk to you? Because I don't know how to talk to you. I said, please do not touch me. Thank you for not touching me. What else can I possibly do? And she was like, and just like walked out of the room. Like I literally had like this is some weird shit right here. And like, I'm not the type of person to like, it was like day 3, which means I had seen probably 4 or 5 nurses at that time. A lot of nurses will come back and see you again. Like, it's like you're on rotation. Like they'll come back into the room and you're like, oh, hey, it's that nurse I've had before. So every time a new nurse came into the room, granted, I'm like laid on my back, looking up at the ceiling. I'd be like, oh, hi, have I had you before? Like I'm just be like, hey, have I had you before? Because if they're like, yes, I'm like, okay, cool. I know how to talk to this person. I know how to communicate with this person. This person cares. This person doesn't care. They're friends with my family. They're friends with me. We don't know. Like, it was just like a whole thing. And I was like, hey, excuse me. Have I had you before? And she goes, oh, so we all just look alike, do we? And I'm like, wait a minute, does she think I'm racist? Like, I was so confused. I'm like, is she even black? I can't even tell. Like, I'm staring at the ceiling. Like, what is going on right now?
She was insinuating that you were saying all black people look the same.
She was just like insinuating that I was like some white dude with a beard and tattoos. So it was like, man, I don't want no racist.
Oh, have I had you before?
Like, I
can't fucking tell.
I can't tell. I don't want you doing my care, knowing people like you gonna be touching people like me. Like, that is not what I was going for at all.
Looking at the ceiling.
I was looking at the ceiling. I was like dead to the world. I'd slept for like 2.5 hours, and the 72 hours I had been there, I was delirious. I was just trying to figure out who was in my room, and like, this is what I mean by just like ego driven and like and just incompetent and just trying to start fights. And like, I had a doctor come in the room and Jalila was here. He came to examine me and the dude might as well have been punching me. Like, at one point he like started grabbing my leg and I was like, please don't touch it. He's like, oh, you can feel that? And I go, yes. He goes, how can you feel that? And I go, I'm a L2, spinal cord injury, incomplete. He goes, what does that mean? And I go, it means I can feel temperature some places. It means I can feel pressure and soft touch some places, and other places I can't. And I've got some function and have some don't. He's like, oh, okay. And he was the head of neurology, like the head of like neuro people. And he was there to come examine my back. So he just like grabs me by my shoulder, my bad shoulder, like pulls me up and starts like a karate chop, like starts just whacking at my back. And I'm like, like I'm like losing breath, like choking. I'm like, I was like, stop. And I'm like, I'm like, why did you do that? I was like, could you please be more gentle? And he's like, oh, well, forgive me for just examining my patient. Here, take this pillow and hug it. It'll make you feel better. And he's like, and I'm like, dude, I wasn't in pain until you came into this room. And he goes, yes, you were. I go, yeah, my legs hurt, but my upper body didn't hurt until you just decided to hit me. I was like, you need to go away from me right now. And he's like, here, take this pillow and hug it. It'll make you feel better. And I'm like, so basically you came and punched me in the face, handed me an ice pack and said, okay, this will make you feel better. It's like, you're the one who did it to me. Go away. I was so mad. And that was right as the time my mom walked in the door. And she was like, oh, hi, are you the doctor from blah, 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 blah? And he goes, no, get out of my way.
He said that?
Yeah, like he literally was like the cockiest fucking...
You said that to your mom?
Yeah, like the dickiest dick of a dickhead ever. Like, I've never...
He's the cockiest cock and the dickiest dick?
I have literally never met so much incompetence mixed with ego. And then even in the hallways, like the nurses would be like fist fighting each other. Like they'd be like screaming and yelling. Like one time my mom said she had like 3 different people from 3 different areas, like one nurse, like one orthopedist, and one like tech, like literally like screaming at each other, like throwing stuff because they couldn't agree on like what orders they were supposed to give me. Like, this hospital was trash, like the trashiest trash place ever. And it was like my whole family was there to like fight and defend and like advocate, and like I was trying to fight and defend and advocate, but like everyone had attitudes, everyone was incompetent, everyone was ego driven. And dude, they couldn't even do basic things like attach my IV correctly. Like at one point they like had to like do my IV again because they had done it bad. And then like there's these special like stickers that like go over the IV, and you're supposed to put it on like in the exact same like specific direction.
So the little cord has a place to go.
And there's little like instructions and tabs that say like this way up, this way down, wrap this around here. And they just like ripped it off and just like smacked it on there. And I was like, can you put it on right? And she goes, I ain't done yet. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Can you peel off the one you put on incorrectly and put on a new one? She goes, no. And just like taped it up. Like with just some like regular like cloth tape. And I'm like, well, I guess technically this works. Like there was just so much wrong, like in every way, shape, or form. And everyone like wasn't believing me about, they would always be like, in the morning, they'd be like, give you this like nerve test or whatever. They'd be like, squeeze my fingers. I'd be like, squeeze my fingers. And they'd be like, okay, well push up. And I'd be like, push up. Like pull down. Okay. Then they get to my legs, be like, wiggle your toes. Like, can't do that. Why? You're not in here. You just broke your leg. You can wiggle your toes. I'm like, I have a spinal cord injury. Okay, describe that to me. I'll be like, paralysis? Like, and then I would go through the whole
I couldn't wiggle my toes before I came in here, dumbass.
Yeah, and I'd go through the whole thing where I'm like.
Didn't they go, well, try?
Yeah, well, try. And it was this whole thing where I'm like, again, I'd be like, some places I can feel temperature, some places I can't. Some places I can feel soft touch, some places I can't. Some places I feel heavy touch, some places I can't. Some muscles I can move, some muscles I can't. And they'd be like, okay, lose the attitude. Like, they would be like mad at me for like describing what was going on. And they'd be like, lift your toes up. I'm like, can't do that. Well, try. I was like, I haven't been able to do it for a decade. They're like, press your toe down. I'd be like, okay. She's like, see, look, I told you could move it. And I'm like, what? Like, you guys are baffling me with how fucking dumb you are. How could I possibly trust you with my care? Like, it was just like constant. And like, Jalila knows, and I think a few other people know, like how sensitive my feet are to the point where like even in fully like non before this accident life, if you were just to even like touch it too hard or squeeze it too hard, like I would scream because it hurts so bad. Like all my nerves are like always on fire there. And then like they would just like start poking at it and smacking at it and squeezing it and like all this stuff. And I'm like, please stop touching me. Like, you have to ask. Like, this is called consent. Like, you have to be like, is it okay if I touch you? Is it okay if I move you? May I examine you? I'm like, these are basic things. And then...
Why didn't you try to move hospitals? That's probably a lot of people's question.
I don't think you can. Like, I think unless you're like a super ultra, like, wealthy person who can, like, afford, like, a helicopter rental to, like, pick you up and move you to a nicer private hospital. But I couldn't do that. And there was, like, this just like my sister Rachel, she works in dentistry, and dentistry is still a form of healthcare, and healthcare requires HIPAA laws, which is like privacy and like all this stuff. And she goes, I've never seen more HIPAA violations in my entire life. They're shouting full names across the floor. They're open charts just left out everywhere with full medical information. She's like, they're discussing medications out loud. Like, she's like, I've never seen such grotesque violations of HIPAA in my entire life. She goes, this is insane. She goes, this is crazy. She's like, you would get fined just out the ass if anyone ever caught you doing this. And like, I was like, had no confidence in anybody. So I was like really lucky that I had a family with me that had been through stuff like this before. Like, I couldn't even eat the food. Like, literally, I had to be like, don't bring me trays of food, because the first tray they brought me had butter and bread on it. And I'm like, hey, remember when I said I was allergic to dairy and gluten and it would have like bad consequences? Like, I was like so mad. I'm like, you guys can't even figure out a fucking diet. Like, basic things. Like, how can I trust you with anything? Like, I was so anxious about that, because I'm like, what if there's other stuff that's wrong with me? What if they like missed something on the MRI?
Yeah.
You know, what if they're poisoning me with medicine? And like, come to find out, they kind of were. Like, I had a liver laceration, and that means I was bleeding internally, and they were giving me blood thinners at the same time. which means I would bleed
multiple
more.
times a day, right? Because
Yeah.
they're only like you should have been getting like one to avoid blood clots or something, but they were giving you like more than you needed.
Well, I should have been gotten none, but the risk of blood clots outweighs the risk of internal bleeding, I guess. I don't fully understand it, but that was their logic. And then, like, no team would communicate with another team. So, like, the ICU wouldn't communicate with the main floor. The main floor wouldn't communicate with, like, occupational therapy. Occupational therapy wouldn't communicate with the orthopedist who actually did my surgery. Like, no one knew anything. Like, anyone who came into the room, I'd be like, hi, what do you know about me? And they'd be like, I know you had surgery. And I'm like, yeah, but what else do you know about me? I'm like, what's different about me? What's unique about me? Did you read my chart? They're like, oh yeah, we looked over it. And I'm like, okay, so what's different? What's different about me? Like, I started like testing them to be like, if you don't know that I have a spinal cord injury, like there was even one point they were like, all right, time for you to poop. Let's scoot you, put you on the toilet. And I'm like, don't poop that way. I'm like, you honestly don't know how spinal cord injury poop? Like, you seriously don't know that? Like, that's like I'm intermittent cathing right now. You've brought me intermittent caths because it got to the point where the nurses were doing it so unsanitarily that I was like, fuck it, I'm doing this on my own. Like, they wouldn't like wash their hands, and when they would like open up the box that had like all the closed system stuff in it, they would just like put on these gloves that like, and then they thought all of a sudden magically they were sanitary, but then they would like touch the bed and like touch the blankets and like touch their face. Like,
dude, that was the worst. Dude, when I used to work at Subway, this one lady, I only worked there for like a week. This lady would put on gloves and then like do the cash register and handle money with the gloves. And then she would like start doing the sandwiches again. I'm like, just because you're wearing gloves doesn't mean you can touch anything. Yeah, like, oh, well, I'm wearing gloves. I can touch food now. It's like, but the gloves were just touching the fucking money.
Yeah, I get annoyed when I go to Chipotle and I'm like, hey, I have some allergies. Can you switch out gloves? And they just take off the gloves and put on new ones. And I'm like, that hand touched the dirty glove that's putting on the clean glove. It's like, you got to wash your hands. That's called procedure. It's like, I've been coming here long enough to know. And they'll even sometimes just pump some hand sanitizer on there. I'm like, hey, can you wash your hands? And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. And they'll like pump some hand sanitizer. I'm like, no. Can you wash your hands? And I'll just like stand there until they do it. It's like, jeez Louise, dude. Like, there's so much, like, I'm just constantly baffled. And it's like, that was my experience when I like with my spinal cord injury too. Like the trauma hospital that I went to, thank goodness I went there. Trauma hospitals are the bomb because their job is to like put you back together again, make sure you're not dead and you're alive enough that they can pass you on to get to the next person that came in. But the second you get passed on, oh boy, you're fucked. You are fucked. Like, the people that work at trauma hospitals are usually like not career people. They're people that they have little to no training, or they never do any retraining. There's a lot of like toxic relationships and like power imbalances inside of the units in the facilities. Everyone's ego driven. Like, no one wants to do like their job, like reading charts and like paying attention and like being clean. Like, they're just there to get a paycheck and leave. Like, they don't give a fuck. Like, this probably isn't their career. Like, they just don't care. You know, it's like, it's bad, man. It's bad. And it's like, usually trauma hospitals are state-funded hospitals. So it's kind of, in a weird, creepy way, kind of a look into what like socialized healthcare could potentially look like. Now, who knows? Because, you know,
social. You think it's just bad leadership?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Because it doesn't get that way overnight, you know?
It's got to be a trickle down. It's got to be like, it's everything from, I think just no one at the top pays attention to what's going on down at the bottom. I don't think that like anyone who's in any managerial or like leader or like C-level position cares about what the next group of people are doing. And that next group of people doesn't care what the next group of people are doing. They just care about collecting a check and quote unquote doing their job, you know? And it's like, you're not doing your job. Like, maybe on paper you are, but you're not actually. It's like, I left the hospital with an infection. Like, you're not supposed to leave a hospital with an infection. Like, that is a tragedy. But luckily, I knew how to manage it on my own. I knew how to get rid of it. I knew what supplements to take. I knew how to drink a bunch of water. Like, I knew I had one. Like, when they were like, bye, see you later.
Yeah, what was up with... So that was one other thing that was kind of interesting, that you originally told him you wanted to get discharged. You wanted to be off Oxy before you got discharged, right? That was like the original idea.
Yeah, because
And also no one really knew how long you were going to be in the hospital, right?
Yeah, they said anywhere from like 5 days to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
Because
what
Jalila, you said you're like, yeah, I don't really see it happening within like less than a week, really.
Yeah.
But then it ended up being less than a week.
Yeah, and then one of the things I told them, I was like, I want to be off opiates before I leave, because I just didn't want to have to go home. Because like normally my safety blanket is if I have to leave a hospital after an operation or anything like that involves opiates, long term, I go stay with like my sister or my mom. But currently, my sister's living with my mom, and like their whole family's together. Like, there's no way we can add an extra body over there. Literally not possible. And it's like we have been having people come stay over here. We threw up a cot here in the studio, and people have been sleeping in here. But luckily enough, I'm at a point in my recovery where I don't have to have them like watch over me. Like, I'm not taking extra doses. Like I'm writing down on paper, you know, like how far away, like how many hours I've made it, and I keep trying to like make it further. And you know, like my like addict personality towards it is like, because I don't like opiates, man. They make me constipated. They make me fucking dumb. You know, I get a dry mouth. Like, there's just so much stuff about opiates I'm not a huge fan of. But that was one of the things I was like, yeah, I want to be like on it, like Tylenol 800 or something by the time I leave. And like that was thrown out the window.
Pretty much.
Like there was so many
times. Because what did they do? They just come in and like, all right, you're going home today.
Well, we heard over the loudspeaker intercom, they announced, they're like, we are at capacity. All nurses need to itemize and focus on discharges. Like they literally they announced it like, shh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are at capacity. Nurses, pay attention. If anyone can leave, get them the fuck out of here now. Goodbye. Doesn't matter if they're ready or not. Make them leave. Like it was like the weirdest thing ever. And then like very shortly, like someone pops in. It's like, hey, you ready to go home? And I'm like, no.
Nope. I'm in a lot of pain. Still on opiates.
I told him, I was like, I will not go home until I have wound care instructions. I was like, I will not go home unless I'm cleared by a physical therapist that actually knows what the hell they're talking about. Because all the physical therapists would roll up in there with crutches and be like, all right, let's get you up and walking. And I'm like, can't do that. You know, they're like, oh. Like one of the physical therapists or an occupational therapist, I had to explain to her what a lightweight rigid wheelchair was. She didn't know.
So that was a power chair?
She had no idea what a lightweight rigid chair was. And another lady, the occupational therapist, she's like, okay, well, we just want to make sure that you can get home. I was like, I shower on my own, I cook on my own, I clean on my own, I live on my own, I got a pet on my own. I was like, I'm real independent, I'm good, thanks. Like, they wanted to send me home. Like, their way of, like, discharging me out of the hospital was going to send me home with an at-home carer.
How many hours would they be there a day?
Probably 24/7, I don't know.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they wanted to send me home with, like, an outsourced. And that's
a thing?
Yeah, with like an outsourced 24/7 care person. And then they also wanted me to have to do like at-home physical therapy. Another thing, this is a huge pro tip, if you are a spinal cord injury patient and if anyone does anything for you ever at home, doesn't matter if they're helping you clean your wounds, doesn't matter if they're changing your bed, if they're doing physical therapy, if they are your personal care attendant, no matter what it is, try to not do that. Because if that happens, all of your medical supplies have to be supplied by that company. Which means that if like certified nursing assistant Jessica, who's had this job for 2 weeks, who works for DBC Home Care, they're going to have to be in charge of getting all your medical supplies for you that you normally get in the mail.
And then they're like no bid, like they can charge you whatever they want basically, right?
Well, it's not just that. It's just like they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
They're not trained on that. They literally have no idea. So like, yeah, I was talking to my friend Clint, who also had a similar surgery, a nail surgery, and he's like, yeah, dude, I told him no way. Like, I'm not going to let someone come into my house and mess up my entire ecosystem of, like, my catheters and how
sounds awful.
How I get them and where I get them. It's basically a Medicare thing. Like, Medicare, the second that they think or look on paper or there's evidence that you're incompetent, meaning, like, you can't take care of yourself, all of a sudden it like sends off all these like major red flags within the system, and then like everything has to be done for you. Like you're not allowed to do anything autonomously anymore. It's like you're fucked. Like it'll be like, oh, if someone's at your house helping you do this, then that means you probably need to have someone living there with you, so we're gonna send someone to come live with you. And oh, I guess that means you don't know how to order your own catheters anymore, and I guess you don't know how to manage your money anymore, so we're going to pay that company your social security check, and then that company is going to help you manage your money by giving you little allowances. And like it's like this it's like this whole mess, because it's set up for mainly older people, you know, so that makes sense if you're 70, 75, 80 and you have these incompetence problems. But like, hi, I'm 30. I'm a permanently disabled wheelchair user that has Medicare because I've been disabled for more than 2 years straight. Okay? I'm not your average person. Leave me alone. Like, they were always so baffled. Like, one of the occupational therapists was like, so you want to get up and move in today? I go, nope. Like, what are you going to teach me? What are you going to show me? What are you going to help me with? Literally nothing. There's nothing you can help me with. Like, like, you are literally the most useless person in this environment right now. Like, one person even asked me, I dead ass, I was like, yo, I need to poop. I was like, I need to transfer the toilet. They go, how do you transfer? And I'm like, what? Like, you transfer? Yeah. Like, well, how do you transfer with no legs? I'm like everyone transfers. I'm like all spinal cord injury transfers. Like, you just transfer. I'm like, you scoot your butt using your hands. I was blown away. I'm like, what do you mean? How do you transfer? Like, I was very confused, because I'm like, you should know this. Like, don't you teach this? Like, don't you teach people how to get out of the hospital bed and into their wheelchair? Like, isn't that your job? Like, I'm so confused.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, man, it was just like the craziest, gnarliest situation. But like, I'm lucky, man, because like I had people that were cooking me food all the time. I had people that were walking down the halls, like knocking on the nurses' doors. Like, there was like this phone system where you like dial like the nurse and be like, hey, you know, like, I'm in pain. Can you bring my medicine? Mm-hmm. They'll be like, oh yeah, sure. And then they'd show up like an hour and a half later. It's like, hey, I needed that an hour and a half ago. You know, so I had like my sisters and like my mom, and I think Jalila even did this too, where they would just go harass the people and be like, hey, so you're going to come bring him his stuff? Hey, you're going to come bring him his stuff? Hey, can you come bring him his stuff? Hey, he needs his stuff. Can you bring him his stuff? Hey, he asked you an hour ago to bring him his stuff. Are you going to bring him his stuff? Like, they were just constantly like berating people. And it's like,
I mean, I saw like even just a little bit, like when you needed like ice. Like, they came and brought it in like a bag, but didn't seal the bag, and they just left it there, so it just like all like melted all over the countertop. And like
one time
they brought you water in a bag that wasn't sealed.
Yeah, and just like set it somewhere, and I'm like, what the fuck?
It spilled over everything. And then like the other weird thing was when they discharged you, they like didn't time it with the meds. So like once they had like officially discharged you, but you were still sitting in the bed or whatever, like they couldn't, like they're like, oh well, we can't give you pain meds. It's like, well, what am I just supposed to fucking do now?
Well, that was one of the things I told her. I was like, hey, one of the nurses, I was like, hey, I took some meds at like 11. I was like, I know I can get them again at 3, but I don't want them at 3 because I know I'm leaving at 5. I was like, so I'm going to wait until I can take them. I was like, you let me know so I can take them right before I have to transfer into a wheelchair and transfer into a car and then back into a wheelchair and then come into my place and like get into a bed. I'm doing a lot of movements right now. I was like, I need to know. And then she came in the room. She's like, okay, you've been discharged. Time to go. I was like, okay, cool. Let me go ahead and get those meds. She's like, oh, no, you've been discharged. You're not on my computer anymore. And I was like, what the fuck? I was so pissed. I was like, no, you need to find a way to make that happen right now. I go, I'm currently in pain intentionally so that when it's time for me to leave, I'm not in any pain anymore. Oh, no, you're just not on my books anymore. I just can't do it for you. I'm like, no, yeah, you will. I was like, put me back in the system. I'm not leaving then. I was like, you gotta figure out how to put me back in the system. I was like, not doing it. Like, I was so stubborn on that. Like, I'm like, no. And eventually they were able to.
They gave you like some little bitch medicine.
Some little bitch boy shit that like, she was like, well, I could get in trouble for this. And I was like, don't care. Don't care. I'm like, you didn't do exactly what I asked you to do. I was like, I'm tortured right now. Like, I literally when you're laying for so long. So my leg has been like swollen up like a balloon, like a huge balloon. Like you press it and your finger sinks in. Like Jalila, you've seen this. Like it sinks in like multiple millimeters, and that's if I'm like laying on my back. So if I sit upright, all that blood flows to my legs, and it makes it inflame even more. So all my incisions start to stretch out. It gets really hot and like feverish, and like all the nails and the bones and like all the crazy stuff, like it starts to hurt. Like I literally like lose my breath. Like I can't talk. Like it hurts so bad. Like I can't think. Like it's so fucky. And like, man, I'm so glad I'm out of there. I'm so glad I'm home.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so
even though you're not on, even though you didn't get off opiates before you were able to leave, like it was for the better.
Dude, it's for the better, because the last 2 or 3 days.
Because really, all they're doing, I mean, at the hospital, yes, they can like monitor other things.
All they were doing were administering drugs and checking my blood pressure for the last 2 or 3 days, and they were administering my drugs incorrectly, and the machine was broken that was checking my blood pressure. It
kept saying you were like 225 beats per minute or something, right?
Yeah, at one point it said my pulse was over 250, and the nurse logged it. And then some lady from downstairs sprinted upstairs and she goes, "Who's having a heart attack right now?" And I'm just like, "No one." I'm chilling. She goes, "Yeah, and most people die at 220. I'd never seen a 250 in a long time." And I'm like, and come to find out, you want to get a kick out of this shit? I figured out what they were doing. So they were taking my blood pressure on the same arm that they were checking my pulse on.
So like
the spike of them checking, so the blood pressure cuff was squeezing my arm, creating a pulse of 220 within that arm for approximately 10 seconds. And that's when it was reading it. So I was like, this is nursing school 101. Do not take blood pressure on the same side that you check the pulse, because gonna be different.
You're cutting off the pulse, you dumbass.
Yes, like I literally like.
Let's check the pulse on the place where we just cut off the pulse. That'd be nice.
Yeah, and then they literally like took the machine and like tested it on their own finger, and they're like, "It's working fine here," and like put it on my sister, and it's like, "It's working fine over here," and I'm like,
"She's not having a heart attack, must be you."
And I'm like sitting here like, "You guys are fucking stupid." Like I remember one time this lady like had this like really ice cold drink.
Didn't it happen multiple times?
Multiple times.
Was it the same person that did it?
No, it was different texts like each time. Like
so they're just that stupid.
When I say the lack of training and incompetence was baffling, this is what I mean. There was even like at one point they checked my temperature after they gave me a cold drink, and we're like, "Ooh, your temperature's a little low." I'm like, "Maybe because you just gave me my meds with ice water. And my mouth's a little bit colder. Maybe that's the reason why."
Give me a rectal one.
It's like, dude, like how stupid are you guys?
Very dumb.
Like, but when I got sent home, I was like, thank fuck, man. I was like, because at least at home, I get to decide when I take my meds at the right time. I get to decide when I pee at the right time. I get to have a kitchen available for me to help me cook. I get to have people stay over and take care of me and kind of take a quote unquote nurse's role, but it's not even a nurse's role. You're just like hanging out with me, and when I'm like, "Hey, can you bring me a water bottle?" and like, "Hey, can you move my feet?" and like, "Hey, can you cook me some food?" It's like, it's not drastically difficult, but man, I'm so glad I'm out of that stupid fucking tragedy of a hospital. And like, I can't wait. Like there's gonna be some videos that come out of this for sure. Like I haven't had any time to like think about it too much, but like I think about like how to advocate for yourself is gonna be like a good video topic to, like, you know, how to talk to people, like how to ask for certain things. Like I still kind of have to brainstorm about it because it's still been like so chaotic over, you know, the past 2 or so weeks, almost 2 weeks, 12 days. But yeah, there was
Merry fucking Christmas.
Merry Christmas. But one of the I think one of the coolest things that came out of this, all of it, was you guys that sent in your submissions after the video. So for those of you who don't know, after in the last video, Andrew set up a system. I'm just gonna let Andrew explain it all.
Yeah. So basically, when Jalila like told me what was going on, I was immediately like, "What can we do to help?" Blah blah blah. Like everyone, when they hear bad news, they're always like, "What can I do to help?" But like, it's nothing you can like really do. You know, it's like there's just not much you can do. So anyways, I was just like thinking, I'm like, well, it'd be cool. Because the other thing was you hadn't really reached out to very many people, right? Like
It was just a few select people, like
Yeah.
my family and like obviously his family and then close friends.
yeah.
Yeah, we were keeping it mostly private.
Because also, again, like, what's the fucking point? Like, you weren't accepting visitors. You didn't want sympathy. You didn't want fucking, like, flowers or anything. Like, what is the point besides just, like, keeping people in the loop?
Well,
you
people can figure out when it's time for them to figure it out.
Exactly.
You know, it's like I was in no hurry to let people know. Like, I'll let them know when I'm ready to let them know.
Yeah, because, again, at the end of the day, there's not really that much of a point besides, like, getting sympathy or like getting people to feel sad for you or sorry for you or whatever. And like, so that was one thing where I'm like, well, I don't want to be the one to like fucking just like tell everybody. Cause like, you know, I know like my brother is like kind of sensitive about things like that. I know like you tend to be like pretty like private about certain things. So like, I didn't want to be the one to go around like spilling the fucking beans on everything. But at the same time, I wanted to like get support from other people. Like I wanted to like create some sort of way for like friends to like write you a message or something. That was like my main idea. I was like, I'm gonna reach out to like the closest people, get them to write like a message, and then maybe I'll like put together like a little book. Like that was my idea. I was literally like, I'm gonna make a little book with like pictures and notes from like his closest friends, basically. So I reached out to like people we'd done videos with, reached out to like all the people I knew you like DM'd with on Instagram, things like that, which were like the people that were closest and everything.
The regulars, so to speak.
The regulars, exactly. And I got them to write a message. And I got a bunch of good ones. But the other thing was I also told him, I'm like, please respect his privacy. Don't like message him and like, please don't be like, oh, Andrew told me all what's going on. What's happening? Hey, how's it going? I'm like, cause like, that's weird. And like, I didn't want that either. So I'm like, please like don't message him until it's like public knowledge, or if he contacts you, then say something, but like, please don't like be texting him. Cause like, that's not what he needs right
I
now.
also didn't have my phone.
Yeah. That's another thing. We eventually did get the phone. It was in the first car, right?
Yeah, I'll make that story really quick because we're kind of running in on time. But so I was using my phone as a flashlight to like see into the car to like talk to the person. I was in there. And so when the second car hit the first car, I just like released it and like I guess threw it into the car. And I didn't get my computer until like the third or fourth day. And I was like, and everyone was like, oh, your phone was destroyed. It was on the side of the road. It's been crushed. It's been maimed. And I was like, but maybe not, you know, like I was like, it's a waterproof phone that like maybe has a few scratches on it, but like there's a lot of data on there that I really want. Like I'd like to have my phone. So I jumped on Find My iPhone and it located it somewhere other than where I'd had the accident. And I was like, and it said 8 hours ago updated. And I was like, so someone either has it and turned it off, or it just died 8 hours ago, or, you know, I don't know the full situation, but I just turned it on lost mode and sent a message that was like, hey, I was on 285 and I stopped to help someone and got hit by a car. This is my phone. Please call this number. And come to find out, it was like I said, it was in the car of the person who...
The first accident, the lady that you tried to help.
The lady that I pulled over to help. And like she got it, like I guess like it was in a junkyard, and like one of her mom like went to go clear stuff out of it and like found a phone and was like, oh, well, this is important.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because the car is totaled probably.
Yeah, and then they like plugged it in. And then that message was like on the screen. So she then called my mom because I just made the number, my mom's number, because my mom's the type of mom that answers any phone number, and I'm like,
you never answer.
I don't know anyone who does that other than her. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me just go ahead and get this. So I put in that number, and then she like went to pick it up from her, and she was like super super grateful that I had stopped to help, even though like I'm not sure I really did anything other than just like put myself in danger. Like, you know, it's like maybe if I did help you could be really thankful for it, but I don't know. I just feel like I didn't do anything that's thankworthy. But that's just like, I don't know. Maybe that's
thing is the sentiment of it.
Yeah, I get it. But so either way.
And in her eyes, she was probably like freaking out, and then you're like the guardian angel to the rescue kind of thing. Like, helping her to like calm down and like, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I guess she thought she was, you know, pretty much dead until I showed up.
Yeah.
But that was just like, you know, 30 seconds or whatever. But anyhow, so I'd managed to get my phone back at that point.
Yeah. So and originally I was telling people that your phone was destroyed. So I was like, yeah, his phone's broken. So, contacting him is pointless anyways, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that was my main concern was I didn't want you to feel like people were like reaching out and being like, oh my gosh, Andrew reached out and told me what happened, like blah, blah, blah. Like, what can we do? Blah, blah, blah. Cause that's the first reaction is people like want to come visit you and shit. And it's like, dude, like no one, like I hadn't even gone and seen you at that point either.
Yeah, I knew you'd been talking to people, but it didn't bother me because based on the people that were talking to me, they're like, oh, I heard from Andrew. And I'm like, yeah, that's someone that.
Yeah, but also it'd be weird. You're like, why was Andrew talking to Daryl or something? Like, he's never talked to that guy. Like,
right.
Shit like that.
But it was just like the occasional like person that I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like,
yeah,
it was like Ian was like, yeah, I talked to Andrew. Or like Lisa was like, oh, I talked to Andrew, and I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, okay, fine.
But anyway, so that was my idea from the beginning was to get together like this like book of messages kind of. I was like, I'm gonna put something together for him to give to him in the hospital. Like, and then basically as it went on, I was like thinking, how are we going to release this like podcast we'd already recorded? And then we were like, well, we should maybe say something publicly about it. And then we kind of, I wanted originally, I was like, dude, is there a way that I could like reach out to all the patrons independently somehow without Richard like finding out sort of, or could I like blast his email list with something without him finding out? So then I could like surprise you with this like nice book of messages without it feeling like you were like asking for it kind of. And also, I'm kind of the only one in this weird position to be able to do something like that because, like,
right.
Jalila doesn't know all the people from, like, Wheels to Walking community kind of thing. And, like, your family and friends don't really. And even, like, some of your other close friends don't really. Like, I was, like, the only one in this weird, unique position where I felt like I could do something. So I felt like I should. So, anyways, I was like, no, it wouldn't be right to like fucking blast his email list or something. Like, that's totally not cool at all. And it wouldn't be cool to like, anyway, so there just wasn't a good way to like reach out to a lot of these people. So what we kind of came up together was we came up with this idea to release a video from the hospital. And then we were going to set up this thing on the website, on the Wheels to Walking website, where you could leave Richard a message. And it was awesome. That made it, honestly. Like, that made the whole thing, like, so much more special because then we were able to get so many messages, not only from, like, family and friends and close, friends and, people that we actually know, but we were able to see, because we asked people to leave a message. Basically, my intent was, if Richard would have died, what would you say about him? Like, how did he change your life? Because like Richard could have like fucking died. Like, This is a crazy accident. Obviously, it's been like a week and a half now, so like everything's calmed down a little bit, and we're not so like freaked out. Things are a little more back to normal with your health, at least, But like in the moment, like everything was kind of freaky, and even getting the message of like, Richard got hit by a car. It's like, fuck, dude, like. That's nuts,
Yeah, people die when they get hit by cars. Like,
yeah,
even if they're in a car, they'll die. Like,
so it was just one of those things where I asked people. I said, "Yo, like Richard could have easily died. Like, he's made a big impact already on so many people's lives. Like, leave him a message, tell him how much he means to you." And yeah, and we got like 400 submissions in like the course of the next like 3 or 4 days. And basically, if you're watching the video, you can see this book.
It's a huge binder.
It's a thick ass binder. Like, this thing is heavy.
I've been looking at it for 2 days, and I'm still not even close to being halfway done with it. Like,
yeah. So
like
basically,
I've been jumping around.
So basically, I put together. It'll be in the next like Wheels to Walking. Whoops, it's upside down. It'll be in the next like Wheels to Walking video. We'll kind of talk about it because we like vlogged it. But basically, I made like this whole book of like messages. Like, the beginning starts off with like friends and family, all the people that I reached out to initially. And then the rest is just like these amazing messages from the Wheels to Walking community where like people wrote in, how Wheels to Walking has like changed their life and how it's helped them accept their wheelchair and, how it's helped them look at life differently or how it helped them not kill themselves or stop doing drugs. Like, it's crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah, there's a couple of them on there that I'm like, holy fuck. You know, it's
I cried so many times making this book, dude. Because I read all the messages. Because I was like having to copy and paste them from this like Excel spreadsheet, and I also like wanted it so that none of them like overlapped. So like if there was a message that ended on one page, I didn't want it to continue to the next page because it might have been one of these types of situations where you're like flipping back and forth or whatever. So I was kind of like organizing it nicely and everything. But I was reading through all of them, and I was like, literally like in a Starbucks, like kind of like tearing up, like, God damn it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sure they're
special.
Sure, they're messages to me, but they're also like, you're a part of this too. You're a huge part of Wheels to Walking. So it's like they were also written to you, because without you, Wheels to Walking wouldn't exist either. So yeah, they're special to you too. But yeah, man, there's so many on there that's like, well, goddamn, I'm doing my job then.
Totally.
You know, it's like I'm helping people like reduce their suffering and avoid the pitfalls of all the accidents, all the dumb stuff that I went through, and you know, a lot of the mindsets that I wish I would have had in the beginning, and all the perspectives I would have had that I never had. You know, I just share constantly, and like these people are picking up on it. Where like, there was one thing you said at this one video about this and about that, and then I decided to do something about it, and holy shit, this is crazy. It worked. And,
changed my life.
You know, it's like, thank goodness, you know, like that's
totally. It's crazy. And just like little one-liners and stuff. They're like, you said this, and then it like changed my whole perspective, and I didn't kill myself. And it's like, goddamn, you know, shit like that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's nuts.
Addiction and depression and suicide are way too common for people in positions like us.
Yeah.
And that's why I so open and freely talk about my experience with it, because it normalizes it, and it helps people know that they're not the only one to feel that way. And it's also kind of one of these things like, you don't have to do it. Like, things can get better, things will get better. It's cool, man. It's cool because like I talk about like people online that have any type of like, I hate this term, like influencer job or whatever, have a hard time like balancing their self-worth, because their self-worth is usually tied up with views and subscribers.
Yeah, or maybe their channel is just like straight entertainment, like, you know, just goofing around, like vlogging their life or whatever. And so you're like, who really fucking cares? You know, I'm just like showing off and blah, blah, blah. But we're like not really doing that.
Yeah, it's like, so a lot of people have this like, they're measuring sticks wrong. They don't have a good measuring stick to measure their success. Their success is basically just numbers. But to me, like, this is my success.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the success of you guys is my success, because the more that you guys succeed in life, and the more that you grow, and the more that you develop, and the more that you learn, and the more that you don't do the things I did, that's my measure of success. So it's like, even if Wheels to Walking can be kind of like in a content slump, so to speak, where, you know, like the past 2 or 3 months, just views haven't been where they were.
As big, yeah.
Yeah, subscribers just haven't been where they've been going, and, you know, whatever. Like, that doesn't bother me at all, because I've got these super tight, close relationships with people through DMs, through texting, through Facebook Messenger, you know, and even relationships with people that have never talked to me before.
Yeah.
Just because they watch my videos, and, you know, that's my unit of measure. Is like my measure of success is not money or clout or notoriety or views or subscribers. Like, my unit of measure is you guys.
Well, I think people look up to you as like, you know, a role model of something that they can model their life after. Sort of like they've never seen anyone like you before, so you're like the guy. It's like literally they can go in their head and be like, what would Richard do in this situation? You know what I mean? Because that's how, you know, there's no one that's like really portraying what you're portraying, which is dope.
Yeah, and like in most areas of life, especially if you're an able-bodied person, if you want to be someone, or if you want to be something, there's always role models.
Totally,
I want to be the fastest race car driver. I want to be like that guy. Oh, I want to be the best, you know, fighter. Oh, I want to be like that guy. Oh, I want to be the richest investor. Ooh, I want to be like that guy. Like, everyone has their like role models, but like in the wheelchair world, there's no role models. Well, there are.
There's a few, but
let me rephrase that.
They're not doing it the way they were doing it.
Yeah, there are role models, but they're the kind of role models that are just like, it's different. I don't know.
Yeah, it's different. And also you're kind of like more raw and real and shit, and people really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, Jabba the Hutt, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, no. Wookie solo.
He's got Princess Leia over here. I'm the fucking slave over here. I'm like, please, more food, sir. I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah. I am ready for food and coffee though.
Follow us on places.
Yeah, follow us on places. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Peace.